Public education. Why do we have public education in the United States? Here's a hint. It's been around since the founding of the nation. Actually, even before that. Alright. Why? Why do we have it? Very simply put, because we are a republic. Education in this country is not a right. I know many of us have heard this, but it is not true. In a republic, an educated electorate is necessary, meaning education in a republic is necessary, not a right. The founder of our public education system, Benjamin Rush, understood this. That is why the arguments for a public education system were about, well, around the time of the Revolutionary War. We needed an educated electorate so that way the people could understand what the politicians were saying. That way the people could make an educated decision on how they were going to vote. Education, voting. It's an interesting tie right there, because at the time of the founding of this country, we had over a 95% literacy rate. 95% literacy rate in the 1700s. We were the most literate nation to ever exist. We have gone from that to where we are now. For example, Detroit. Over 40% of adults in Detroit are functionally illiterate. If you can't read, how do you even know what you're voting on? As an example of the literacy rate from the time of the Revolution to now, Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, was essentially read by over 90% of the country. Okay, that's a lot. How many people today read bills that go through Congress? How many people know or understand or care as to what our politicians are doing? Now, some people will go and say in the reference to Detroit, well, there's a lot of black people there. They've been persecuted, undermined, and oppressed. Well, yes. But that is not the reason for being illiterate. During the time of slavery, once again, well over 85% of blacks, and these were slaves, in this country were literate. Why? Because they all read the Bible. It was one of the single most important things to them. That is also why our first textbook in our public schools was the Bible. Almost every family had one. It was the one text that would essentially be commonplace. And since not everybody had the money It was used. Now, an educated electorate is the single most valuable resource we can have and the single greatest threat to the politicians. I know it's a stretch, but that's honestly why I think the Department of Education was created. To get away from this. To get away from the basics of an educated population. One of the things that I find humorous is the fact that women originally had the right to vote. It was taken away from them in 1813. It was taken away from them because the politician that had recently been elected did not get the woman vote. So we set ourselves back an additional 100 years because one jackass was a spiteful douchebag. I mean, come on. How many people know when the first black man was elected as a judge? Here's a hint. It was not in the 20th century. It wasn't in the 19th century. The first black judge was elected, was it 1770? Think I'm joking. Look it up. This is why we need an educated electorate, because we are a republic. And in some ways, this very argument can be used as a litmus test. Essentially, if you don't know what's going on, if you can't read, if all you do is look at D and R, pick one and pull a lever, should you be able to vote? If you are going to affect the lives of millions of other people, should you be allowed to vote if you don't even understand what you are voting on? Some would say voting is a human right. No, voting is essentially a privilege. And by putting this power in the hands of people who don't even understand the power that they wield is dangerous. That's like putting a loaded gun in a 3-year-old's hand. It's insane! Now, another question we should all ask ourselves is, with all these wonderful standards that we have since the creation of the Department of Education, why has the literacy rate gone off of a cliff? Nationally or globally speaking, this nation is, well, kind of dumb. Something to think about. Well, have a good one.